Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
The Devils and Oilers played a couple of games overseas this week. This is at least the second year in a row the NHL has done this.
Yeah.
And it's a head scratcher for me. I don't know why they do it. I don't know who actually cares. I don't know who actually watches.
No one knows. Like, yeah, it's kind of useless.
I don't even know where the game was, to be honest.
It's like as if the game didn't even happen, right?
Yeah, it almost didn't.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Hello?
Skippy.
Good morning.
Good morning to you as well.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
I'm starting to like these morning recordings. We're getting into like a groove of scheduling and like a little bit of a routine. You figure after almost 2 years we would have a routine already. We'll throw that out the window, I guess. But yeah.
No, well, I mean, it's too cold to do anything outside now.
Mm-hmm. You could rake leaves.
I guess I could, but I don't need to do that because I don't own a house.
Right.
And the other thing is, like, at night I'm just too tired. So the morning is better for me.
No, but at night is when we have to watch what we're going to talk about.
I know, we're busy. We're working at night.
It's a second job.
Yeah, we're like, yeah. What is it? What's that called when you're moonlighting? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we're moonlighting. Yeah. So where do you want to start? I mean, I have a few things that I'd like to like talk about. If you don't have anything specific, I don't know.
We need to talk about baseball.
Major League Baseball.
There's only been one game on the championship series played so far. It was last night. The Brewers beat
By
the
the way,
Dodgers.
so before we even begin, let me just say how disappointed I was in Major League Baseball that there were no games on Wednesday and or Thursday.
Leagues always do this, and we know why, because it's run by television.
Yeah.
But like they lost their momentum.
100%. Like, I almost forgot the playoffs were happening.
Yeah, I was like, okay, there's a game every night. There's not only is there a game every day, there's like 2 games every day, you know. And then there was 4 games in one day, and then all of a sudden, and then nothing, you know. So they definitely lost their momentum, but we never did like a proper playoff preview just because we didn't have the time and we couldn't fit it into like our schedule.
It wasn't our fault. It was baseball's fault that they didn't clinch anything until the last minute. So that's right. And then they had to have those tiebreaker games. Right. So it's not our fault. It's their fault.
So I wanted to do sort of like a preview. I was going to ask you like a couple of questions about like the 4 teams that are left.
Let me guess. The preview you were going to have, had we done it like a week ago, you were going to say that the Red Sox and Astros were going to play each other and that the Dodgers and Brewers were going to play each other, right? That's what you were going to say to me, isn't it?
Well, that is true. I know you're making a joke out of it, but yes, that's what I would have predicted anyways.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you, and then I'll give my opinion too. So we have the Red Sox and the Astros, and we have the Brewers and the Dodgers. And look, the Brewers won game 1, so that could go into effect like what your predictions or what I'm going to ask you. But like, what teams do you want to win? Like, are you cheering for? And what teams do you think will win?
Okay, good question. So, want to win in the National League, I want Milwaukee to go to the World Series. Mm-hmm. Because I don't even remember the last time they were there. I think it was against the St. Louis Cardinals, right?
1982.
When the Brewers were actually in the American League.
That's right.
Most of our listeners don't even remember that.
Right, that's right.
So in the National League, I want it to be the Brewers, and in the American League, I wanted it to be Cleveland, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, you were so high on Cleveland. I don't know what happened to them. They
got swept.
I mean, was it that the Astros are too good, or is it that the Indians? Well, I mean, like they rely on their bullpen so much, and the bullpen definitely failed them, right?
But not only that, they didn't hit at all, Cleveland.
No, not at all. The Astros are such a juggernaut, you know?
They really are. Cleveland's a very good team. Like, no one even paid attention to them because they clinched their division, like, at the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of it. They weren't really playing any high-pressure games most of the year. No. And then they finally get into the playoffs, and, like, they have to switch gears, and they couldn't do it. In a short series, especially.
So what did you say? You want the Brewers to win?
Well, now that Cleveland's out, I want the Brewers to win the World Series. Although there is one thing that tears me a little bit, if you will, because I want a team that hasn't won in a while to win, which is why I want the Brewers.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, there is still some connection between the Brewers and the Selig family, and I can't stand that guy. So I'm a little torn.
I get you.
I think his daughter is now officially
The owner.
I don't know if she's the owner
president.
or the president or something.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
So do you want the Brewers to win? Do you think they'll win?
Well, I think they can certainly beat the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And then I think the American League is going to win it again, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I hope I'm wrong.
But who do you think's going to win in the American League?
That's a tough one. You know what? I'm going to go with Houston. And the only reason is because both the Astros and Red Sox can hit up a storm, but the Astros pitching is better.
Yeah.
And
well, the
so
Astros rotation is just...
But that doesn't even matter in the playoffs, the rotation, because you only use like 3 starting pitchers.
I know, but the thing is, like, we've seen like 2 different type of teams, right, in the playoffs. So teams with like really good rotations that their starters take them to like the 7th or the 8th inning, and then you have one guy that comes in. You just need one closer, and then the game's over. That's like the Red Sox recipe all season. They haven't had to rely on their bullpen. Right, and the Astros too, right? Verlander and Cole and Keuchel, they go deep into games. So even if you don't have a strong bullpen, you don't need the strong bullpen. And then you have the other opposite side of the coin, which is like the Brewers, who just throw out a million relievers and they're all great. And the same thing with the Yankees, you know. Well, although the Yankees bullpen was what failed them, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, like,
yeah, I was gonna say, who do you want to win?
Yeah, I'm definitely rooting for the Brewers. That's the team I'm pulling for. And if for the same reason as you, let's see something new. Let's see something different, you know?
By the way, the Brewers, we said even in our preseason episode, we talked about Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain and how the Brewers were going to be a much improved team. And they were a good team even last year. I think they only missed the playoffs by a game.
By a game. That's why they went for it. That's why they made those signings, because they said, hey, we're that close. Let's try to... But the thing is with the Brewers, like, they had some guys that came out of nowhere. These guys that are in their bullpen, have you heard of any of them? Like, no one knew who Hader was, you know, like,
right.
like a month ago even, you know, unless you're like... No, you probably knew because you...
No, I knew like, Hader because he's a good closer and he gets saves, but...
no, and also all the strikeouts. Like in fantasy baseball, that guy must be a machine because of all the strikeouts he gets.
Yes.
He's like a starter, you know?
And then the Brewers went and also made a few moves at the trade deadline. They got Mike Moustakas.
Yeah.
And they got
Moustakas,
Shaw,
that's
I think.
Huge. Yeah.
Granderson, and a third guy that they got. Yeah, Granderson. So sorry, there's a fourth guy even that I'm forgetting that they got at the deadline. So they didn't like just keep the roster they had. They even improved even more.
And in the American League, look, I'm going to root for the Red Sox because I'm kind of a Red Sox guy. But I just can't see them beating the Astros. I think the Astros are too good.
I mean, the Red Sox can hit a homer. Like, they can score 5 runs every inning.
The interesting thing about the Red Sox is that in this day and age, and all these teams, like every team, the reliance on home runs is huge, right? You score runs. In 2018, you score runs by hitting home runs. The Red Sox don't do that. The Red Sox, they hit home runs, but they just hit, you know? They just hit, right? They kill you with singles and doubles and they get on base and, you know, and then every now and then, it's not like the Yankees and Oakland who just hit bombs all the time and that's pretty much their offense, you know? Yeah,
but the Red Sox have like the MVP and the guy who's going to finish second in the MVP voting.
Well, who do you think the MVP is? Mookie?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then JD Martinez. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean...
It's pretty close.
That's like having, what, Gretzky and Curry? I don't know. Gretzky and Messier?
That's what it is. Gretzky and Messier. Yeah. Although, I mean, that's a tall comparison. That's like Gretzky's the greatest player ever and Messier top 10 ever. And I don't think JD Martinez and Mookie Betts are ever going to be top 10 in history of Major League Baseball.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe it's a stretch. But yeah, at the time, I could see where you're going with that. So I was thinking yesterday.
That's when you get into trouble.
Yeah, I get myself into trouble. Just to like go down memory lane a bit, like as I know we like to do. Is there like certain players that you identify with, like the franchises that are left in the playoffs, with like the Brewers and the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Astros? Like I started thinking about it because I was thinking about the Brewers, and I was like, man, when they kept showing the crowd in Milwaukee, there was a lot of Robin Yount and Paul Maltor jerseys, right?
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, to me, like Robin Yount is like the who you identify with that franchise,
100%. His face should be the logo.
Yeah, his face with the beard and everything.
And the mustache. He had a mustache, right?
But it's much harder for the other. Well, and then with the Astros, I think you probably identify Bagwell and Biggio as sort of
100%.
like, or maybe Nolan Ryan, but that's harder because he played on a billion teams, right?
No, for me, it's definitely Craig Biggio for the Astros.
Yeah, so like those two guys
and the
are
other
like
one would be Bill Doran.
Billy Doran, or what about Jose Cruz?
Yeah, with the big leg kick.
Right. But then the Dodgers and the Red Sox, you can't really do that because they have such long histories, right?
Yeah, well,
So-
Fernando Valenzuela, Oral Hershiser.
Yeah.
What's
I mean,
his
if you
name?
really want to go way back,
Rick Monday, of course.
Yeah, well, but if you really want to go way back, like Duke Snyder and, but that's
Sandy
like,
Koufax.
yeah.
By the way,
yeah.
Sandy
And then-
Koufax looks amazing. Every time they show him in the crowd,
I know,
he looks like he could still play. And the guy's like, what, 80, 90?
He looks amazing, right? He really does. And I mean, of course, with the Red Sox, it's impossible. You can look modern day and say Big Papi, but then obviously, like
Carl Yastrzemski.
Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski. That's Roger Clemens, I guess. Although Red Sox fans kind of disowned him, but whatever.
Dwight Evans.
I love Dwight Evans.
I know you do.
I used to love that guy. The Red Sox had so many great outfielders over the years. It's just crazy.
Well, but I mean, I want to talk about some things that happened. It seems like a long time ago, but they happened since the last time we spoke.
Do you want to talk about the conspiracy theory that the Yankees didn't know the start time of the game?
So I heard a little bit about that, but
don't? Yeah.
Like, how do you not like? I won the starting pitcher for that game.
Severino
Maybe did not know what time the game was starting.
Yeah.
But even if you didn't know, like, it's not like you show up to the game 15 minutes before the game starts.
Yeah.
Like, if the game's at 4 o'clock, you're going to show up, I don't know, 2 or something, maybe even earlier.
Yeah. No, apparently they were sitting around there for hours, and then he just didn't get up to warm up at the right time because he thought the game was at 8:05 instead of at 7:35.
Well, I mean,
or 8:10 instead of.
You know what?
7:40.
Listen, I could totally see a player not knowing that because the start times change every day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no consistency.
No, there's no consistency.
So
But,
I could totally see him not knowing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he was there. So you'd think someone on his team would know and tell him,
Yeah.
hey, you need to go warm up now.
Yeah, well, I mean, TBS showed like the pitching coach pointing at his watch and mouthing the words 7:40, like the start time of the game, because he wasn't, apparently they didn't know. And then the owner of the Twitter account Deep to Left, which is a Yankees Twitter account, emailed me a link on Reddit with all these conspiracy theories, and like not like out there theories, they're not like conspiracy theories like the lunar landing never happened and it took place on a soundstage in Arizona. That's like, it's not like a deep conspiracy theory like that. Just like things that happened in the game that point to the fact that they didn't know the time. That like Brett Gardner and Andrew McCutchen might not have been wearing cleats in the top of the first when they were in the field. And they changed their shoes. And the catcher, Gary Sanchez. They paint their fingernails. They have stickers that they put on their fingernails, fluorescent stickers.
Yeah.
In the first inning, he didn't have the stickers on his fingers, and in the second inning he did. It's like as if they were rushed out there and they couldn't get ready in time. There's a lot of weird things, like, I don't know. It's just where there's smoke, there's fire, and
So what is the theory? What is the conspiracy theory? That someone wanted the Yankees to lose?
No, that they didn't know the start time of the game.
So that's their own fault, though. That's not like Major League Baseball's fault.
No, it's their fault.
Okay.
It's like Aaron Boone's fault, or the pitching coach,
and wasn't that game in New York?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so I mean,
Yeah.
I don't. Anyway,
For me, it's probably George Costanza's fault. He's probably still working for the Yankees as the assistant to the traveling
that
secretary.
explains everything.
And he screwed up the time,
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that series, this doesn't even matter anymore. But there was a play, you might recall the inning where the Yankees loaded the bases without it getting the ball out of the infield.
I do recall, yes.
And they could have had a huge inning. In the end, I think they only scored 1 run.
Yeah.
So they called Luke Voit out at second base on that close play that they had to review a million times.
Yeah.
Who was hit, I think, to the third baseman, and he threw it to Ian Kinsler, whose foot was off the bag. So Voit was safe. I saw the replay 100 times, and Voit was safe. Kinsler's foot was off the bag, and yet they called him out.
And even after they look at the replay, right? Which is weird.
Yeah. And the thing is, originally, they called him safe. So you think that, okay, in order to overturn it, it has to be conclusive. And it certainly wasn't. But if anything, if you're not sure, you have to keep the call that was on the field.
Yeah.
And they still called him out. So whatever. I was surprised about that.
As much as I like the fact that they're using instant replay because they want to get calls right, and in the age of HD TV and everybody could see it in a million frames per second and see exactly what's going on, it slows down the game so much. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I mean, baseball games they're 4 hours, all these games.
How many replays did they look at plays at first base to see if they're safe or out? There's no point in having the ump there. There should just be a robot.
I wasn't going to talk about this, but
it should just be a robot at the first base ump, and then in safe or out, and that's it.
That game that you're referring to, the first base umpire Angel Hernandez, 3 of his 4 calls were overturned.
And then did you hear CC Sabathia's comments after the end of the series?
I did, that he should be nowhere near the playoffs.
Well, after they reviewed all his calls and they were all overturned, then the next day he's umping behind the plate?
Okay, so the reason he was umping behind the plate...
I don't care what the reason is. Major League Baseball needs to have some sense.
They had the schedule for who's umping what base before the series even started.
I know.
So that was his day to ump home plate, and they're not going to change it. Because that's like each guy does a base, One game you're at first base, one game you're at second, one game you're at third, next game you're home. That's how it is.
Are you aware that Angel Hernandez is suing Major League Baseball?
I am aware. And it's a ridiculous lawsuit. Like, how do you sue the company that you're working for? How do you do that?
I mean, he's suing them because he feels that he's being discriminated because he's Latino, but even
Latino players say that he can't ump.
I know. If you can't ump, you can't ump. It's regardless of what race you are.
Now, in fairness to him, the 3 calls that were overturned, they were all close plays.
They're very close. But it's his job to make calls. That's his job.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, moving on to the Dodgers series.
Yeah.
Not the current Dodgers series, the one that they won.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in game 2. I'm not sure what game it was. The game that Walker Buehler pitched.
Bueller.
He's sick. My best friend's sister's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend heard from this guy who knows this kid is going with the girl who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night. I guess it's pretty serious.
He gave up a grand slam in the first or second inning to Ronald Acuna. Sorry, it wasn't the first or second inning because Acuna leads off. It couldn't have been the first inning. But anyway, he gave up a grand slam to Ronald Acuna. And in this day and age, I thought for sure they're going to take him out of the game because, managers, they love to take pitchers out, in the first inning these days.
Yeah.
And yet they left him in there and he got like the next 10 batters out, which I was thrilled about. I was thrilled. Like I was stunned that they left him in and thrilled that he got the next 10 guys out. Right. Then they eventually took him out of the game because they wanted to pinch hit for him and that didn't work out. And I think they lost that game, But still, just the fact that they left him in there after he gave up a grand slam, I was stunned.
But that was the at-bat where Acuna took what he thought was ball 4 and took like a step towards first base for a walk, and then they called it a strike, and he was like, and it would have walked in a run, right?
Yes.
And then the next pitch, he hits it for a grand slam.
Yes.
So
unless there were 2 grand slams in that series, and I'm mixing them up.
No, I think that's the one. That's
okay.
the one.
All right. Now I want to talk about the Rockies, who some people don't even know they made the playoffs because they got eliminated so quickly.
Yeah.
Did you see how they lost the last game? They had brought in, I think, their reliever Oberg, and there was a man on third, and Oberg balked.
Oh, yes, I saw this.
So the run scored. That was the winning run. Then there was 2 guys on base, so the guy that was on second went to third on that balk. And then the very next pitch, he throws a wild pitch, also known as a broken window, and another run scored.
Yeah.
And that's how they lost. That's like the worst way to lose. Now, they lost 3 games, so I'm not saying that, if that didn't happen, they would have won the series. But still, it's a terrible way to lose a game.
It's the ultimate in like self-destruction.
Yes, it is.
I mean, how often do you see a balk called in the first place, right? I mean,
I don't know. That rule, I think, should be just abolished because I'm sure there are players who don't even know what a balk is.
no, but I get it for like the balk when there's guys on second or third, but like to hold a guy on first base, they need that rule because otherwise the left-handed pitchers are going to like take the step toward, like it's just going to get crazy with how they're going to hold runners.
Okay, but I mean, I don't know if you saw in this particular instance, he was just flipping the ball like from his glove to his hand.
I know, it was
he wasn't
very
trying
innocuous.
to do anything.
Yeah,
and
no,
he happened to have his foot on the rubber, and so technically, yes, according to the rule, it's a balk.
Yeah, you're
But
right.
he wasn't
in those
trying to
situations, it's
deceive
silly.
the runner.
Yeah, it's in those situations it's quite silly, right? There's no advantage gained. There's no nothing. It's just nonsense.
Anyway, I think that's all I have about baseball.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for the rest of the series. I'm excited to see the Astros Red Sox. The Astros are so great to watch. I love watching Verlander pitch. He's great. I can't wait to see how he's going to do against the Red Sox big lineup, and I can't wait to see how the Red Sox are going to try to manage their pitching staff against the Astros, because even though they beat the Yankees like 3-1, the Red Sox pitching is so vulnerable, right? Like it's basically Chris Sale and that's it,
Yeah, David Price should never start again in the playoffs, and I'm not even kidding.
But he's going to, because they have no one else.
It's a mistake. What they should do is just use an opener for an inning and then bring Price in the second inning, and I think it'll make a huge difference. I think it's something in his head that he can't start, but if you bring him in the second inning, it's technically not a start.
He seems to be better, like when he comes out of the bullpen, right?
So bring him in the second inning, still let him pitch his 5 innings or whatever you were going to let him pitch. You can find a guy to pitch the first inning, I'm sure. Like you've got a roster of 25 guys.
Yeah. It's interesting because when you talk to people, don't you feel that the Astros are the favorite?
Yes.
But, the Red Sox are the home team, right? They're the favorite. They have the home field advantage.
Yes, and whatever. I think the Red Sox won 5 more games than the Astros this year.
But they're loaded. Bregman and Springer, and I don't know. They just have so many guys.
By the way, speaking of Bregman, I wasn't going to mention this either, but he was, after they won their first series, he was a little upset that, they didn't get good time slots on television.
He was very outspoken about it.
And you know what? If I was him, I'd probably be just as upset. But hold your horses, Alex, because you're playing on the Houston Astros and you're playing against the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
The other series that got the prime time slots was Boston and New York, and the other one was Los Angeles and Atlanta.
Yeah.
So Houston and Cleveland is not going to go ahead of Boston, New York, or Los Angeles.
Never in any sport, not just baseball.
Exactly. Yeah. So actually, they did get better time slot than Colorado, Milwaukee, which they should have. So you should be happy about that.
You have to take pleasure in the little things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so that's baseball. I'm excited to see the rest of the playoffs, and we'll keep talking about it every week, I'm sure.
We will.
The National Football League.
So I want to throw you a curveball here.
Okay, sure.
Because this is like a test, and you didn't prepare.
We didn't prepare anything. Never mind, I didn't prepare. Yeah.
Well, a few weeks ago, we talked about the Wonderlic test, and I actually got a copy of it and sent it to you.
I know I never talked to you about it. Thank you for sending it to me, first of all. Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
yeah.
I want to know, did you do the test?
I didn't sit down and write the test, but I looked at it.
And?
Honestly. I mean, you should get almost 100.
There are some tricky questions.
There are some tricky questions, but I think a 12-year-old kid could get 85%.
Well, why don't you let your son do it and your daughter and see what happens?
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, they're not 12; they're older. But I looked at it and I was like, really? This is the test they're giving? It doesn't say very much about like how smart they think these new professional athletes are gonna be. It really doesn't say that much about their college education, and I'm putting that in air quotes, that they're getting,
Right.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
I guess it's really kind of bogus, no?
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, I don't know why they even bother with the test.
No, it's kind of silly. So since we're on the track of football, I mean, there's only one interesting game to watch in the upcoming games tomorrow, which is like probably the biggest game of the year so far, which is Chiefs Patriots.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk of this game, and this game, I do this pick 'em pool every week, and this was a tough game to pick. Actually, there's a lot of tough games to pick because it seems like this week, a lot of the better teams are on the road. And so do you go with the better team or do you go with the home team? And I don't know if you noticed, last week in the early games, every home team won. All the 1 o'clock
Every home
games.
team won, really?
I think all the 1 o'clock games. In fact, I think only 3 home teams lost all last week, I think.
Right. Well, now the Patriots are like 3 to 3.5 point favorites, I think, right?
Yeah, well, because they're playing at home, right? So they're going to be favored.
You think they're going to win? I mean, your big rule is they always cover.
They always cover, but on the other hand, the Chiefs haven't lost a game yet, and so I'm not going to be the one to pick. I'm not going to be the one to pick them to lose until I see them lose.
Yeah.
So
especially with the points that they're scoring, right?
So in my pool against the spread, I have the Patriots covering.
Mm-hmm.
In my pool where I just have to pick the winner of the game, I have the Chiefs winning. So I'm kind of hedging my bets.
You are, yes, you are definitely. So I didn't really want to talk about any other games that are coming up this week. I mean, we're into like the middle part of the season now, so sort of records of teams are starting to take shape, and you're starting to see who the good teams are and who the bad teams are. But I really need to talk about that Thursday night football game. I know it's because the Eagles were playing, but that's not where I want to talk about it.
Well, I'm not happy with the Eagles because it seems like when I pick them, they lose, and when I don't pick them, they win. So I'm already not very happy with the Eagles, and I blame you and your son.
You texted me an hour before the game.
Yes.
2 hours before?
Something
saying,
like
how do you feel about the game tonight? And I was like, I don't feel confident.
Right.
Because the last thing in my head that I saw was the Eagles looking pitiful the week before. Well, not even the week before, 5 days before. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't anticipate is the complete garbage that is the New York Giants. Like, that is the biggest mess right now in the NFL. And I mean, there might be worse teams.
I think there is. I think there are worse teams.
There are worse teams, but like they only have one win, the Giants. And the reason why I say it's like they're the worst is because how do you have a team with Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham and you can't win? Like there's something so fundamentally wrong with this team, either with the coaching or with the game plan, or I mean, I know what the problem is. The problem is Eli Manning is garbage. He stinks.
So I mentioned Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham after week 1. I said to you, how did the Giants lose with those two guys?
Right. It's because right now the quarterback's the most important position on the field more than ever, and their quarterback is terrible. No, and there's probably worse quarterbacks in the league talent-wise, but when I say he's terrible, there's 10 other things he would rather be doing than playing football right now. When I see him playing, I'm like, he'd rather be sitting on the couch watching Family Feud than playing this game. You know?
So it's interesting because last year's coach benched him, and then they fired the coach because he benched Eli Manning. So now they got a new coach who said he was going to use Eli Manning, and now here you're telling me that Eli Manning should be benched.
Now you got me onto the Sports Reporters podcast, and I listened to it the other day. Mm-hmm. And they talked all about this, and I forget which guy was giving the whole story. I think it was Bob Ryan, maybe. And he was saying, like, basically anybody that came and interviewed for the Giants head coaching job that said that they wanted to move away from Eli Manning and they had to start over was not considered for the head coaching job. Anybody that said, we're going to not use Eli Manning, no, you're no good. So they only considered guys that said they're going to be loyal to Eli Manning, and that was this guy who's probably a decent coach, but now he's stuck with like a corpse for a quarterback.
Well, he is, because, by the way, I don't know if you've heard of the backups on the Giants. No one has. I don't know if they've even thrown any passes in their career. Actually, I think they have one guy who's been in the league for like 6 or 8 years, and he's thrown, I think, 6 or 8 passes in his life.
But they had a backup last year, Davis Webb, and they got rid of him. And
what team is he on now?
I don't know. I'm not even sure. He's probably on someone's practice squad, or he's someone's third or fourth quarterback. I think he might be on the Jets. But like they seem to think that he had potential last year, and then they just kind of gave up on him because I think they didn't want to have any quarterback controversy, and it's all Eli, right?
Well, they're better off tanking now anyway and trying to get the first pick next year.
But now the problem is that so you're wasting us. How long is the career of a running back in the NFL?
Not very long.
Okay, so 5-6 years maybe. Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, maybe.
And maybe he's a Hall of Famer and he plays for 10 years. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
No, not that long.
But like, so you're wasting his season this year because he's garbage. Like, they're garbage. And then what are you going to, maybe, I'm assuming they're going to draft a quarterback next in this upcoming draft.
Right.
But how do you know that do you know any of the quarterbacks in the draft this year?
No.
But at this time last year, I knew about Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. Like, I knew all those guys, right? The guy on the Bills, what's his name? Josh Allen, I only heard of like when the draft stuff started heating up. And then going back 2 years ago, I mean, everybody knew about Deshaun Watson. So let's say the Giants draft a quarterback next year, right? Well, then are they going to start that quarterback right away? Throw him in his rookie season?
Well, there are no quarterbacks that they can go get. I mean, there are no good quarterbacks they can go get now.
Yeah. So I just feel like it's going to be like a few years until they have a decent quarterback, and by then maybe Saquon Barkley is like, how good is he at that point in 4 years from now?
Maybe they could go get the backup on Cleveland now that Mayfield's starting. They could go get the former Bills quarterback Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, that's not going to help them.
Or they can maybe get the current backup on the Bills, Peterman.
Sure.
He
might be the only quarterback in the league worse than Manning.
Wait, there's another guy. What about AJ McCarron? He's not playing anywhere, is he? They can go get him.
They could, yeah. They could get all these guys. Actually, all these guys are, I mean... Anyways.
And the last one I'll name is they could go get...
Colin Kaepernick.
That's it. Thank you. Yes.
It was on the cover of the New York Daily News or one of the New York newspapers. There was it was like a whole, you know how they have these sensational headlines, right?
Yes, yeah.
So they showed it on, I forget where I saw it. And it's like all bad stuff about Eli Manning. And in the bottom corner, it's like, get Cap and they have a picture of him with his huge afro, you know? Yeah. But I mean, come on.
That's not going to happen, unfortunately.
No, it's not going to happen, but.
Look, or Tim Tebow.
Yeah, well, he's currently playing like AA or AAA for the Mets.
I think he's in the Arizona Fall League right now, for all I know. Who knows?
Look, I don't usually, as an Eagles fan, it's like you automatically hate like the Redskins, the Giants, and the Cowboys. But I feel bad for Giants fans. I just feel bad for them because they are in a really bad situation right now. And I don't know how quickly it's going to get better, you know?
I don't feel bad for them because they won 2 Super Bowls, and there are like 20 teams out there that have never even sniffed a Super Bowl. So
that's true.
So
that's all I have for football.
So anyway, you mentioned the sports reporters.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to the show anymore, but I know one of the hosts is Mitch Albom.
Yeah, sure.
And he was on an episode of Tony this week. I don't know if you listened to that episode.
I did. I think it was one of the best episodes in the last year.
I agree. I was going to say that Mitch Albom has some really good stories.
Oh, it's ridiculous, his stories. I mean, it's unbelievable.
One of them was when Jacques Demers was the coach of the Red Wings.
That was great.
I had no idea about this story. So, like, I'll tell the story because I don't know if our listeners know the story. Mm-hmm. But so apparently in one of the years that the Red Wings were in the playoffs, before game 1 of one of the series, Albom wanted to interview Demers, and the only time they could do it was like while Demers was driving to the game.
Right.
And so I guess, I don't know if Albom drove him to the game or Albom was in Demers' car while he was driving. I'm not sure exactly who was driving the car, but they were together driving to the game, and Albom interviewed him, and the Red Wings won that game. So then, like before the next game, before game 2, Demers calls him up and says, "Okay, Mitch, when are you picking me up?" And Mitch is like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you drove me to the last game and we won, so now you have to do it again."
Yeah.
And so apparently they did it like, I think, 4 straight games or even 5 consecutive games until the Red Wings lost, and then they didn't do it anymore.
The great thing about that whole story is that when I was listening to it, when he was telling Tony the story, Mitch Albom was the only person in that room that actually knew who Jacques Demers is.
Right, and me and you.
And me and you. But I mean, like, the Tony and all his crew there, they have no idea who he is. Like,
Tony is clueless when it comes to sports. Like, he doesn't know basic things anymore.
Yeah,
like you can name him a player on the Capitals. He has no clue who it is unless it's Ovechkin or Holtby.
Yeah, but he follows the DC teams. He knows the Nationals. He knows the Wizards. You know, the Redskins.
There was another good story that Mitch Albom told about when he was in a band and all of a sudden Bruce Springsteen came on stage.
That I knew about. That story I knew about because
I'd heard that story before.
I had seen videos of it or seen it on Twitter.
But
he's got some great stuff.
He's got some good stories.
Have you ever considered reading the book Tuesdays with Morrie?
I haven't considered it, but I think apparently I should because I've heard it's a really good book.
I think it's quite sad. I'm not sure I want to go there, but
okay.
Anyways, yeah. Could we segue to hockey for a second?
Sure. Well, I did talk about Jacques Demers, so.
The National Hockey League.
I know. You told me you didn't watch the Habs game this week, the Habs home opener against the Kings.
No, just to let our listeners know, I do not subscribe to the NHL package, and I'm not allowed to see Canadians games in this market because Gary Bettman made this rule that if I want to see Canadians games, I need to pay extra. So the only games I get are the Saturday night games, and like when the Canadians play the Leafs or the Bruins, you know, or a team like that, like one of the original 6 teams, I think.
So you can't get RDS?
I can get it, but I don't want to pay. Actually, in fact, I do have RDS. I get RDS, but they black out the Canadians game. They black out RDS when the Canadians game is on.
Even if the Leafs are not playing?
Even if the Leafs are not playing. The only time I get the Canadians is on a Saturday game. If they're the Saturday game, I get it. If it's the Sunday game, I get it. And if it's the Wednesday game of the week on Sportsnet, I get it. But other than that, I don't get it.
That is, I'm going to use Charles Barkley's word. That is awful. Horrible and awful combined.
So I think out of the 82 games, I think I get about 22 of the Canadians games.
Oh my God, that's bad. So that's awful. What about, there's so many Montreal Canadiens fans in Ontario and they can't.
I know, and they want them to pay extra to get.
They want them to pay
like
extra.
there's a Canadians package that I can get for $60. I don't have to get the entire NHL package for hundreds of dollars. So I can get the $60 package, which comes out to about $1 a game. So it's not a terrible thing, but the truth is I wouldn't even watch half those games because I'm not home or I'm busy or who knows. So what's the point?
So I don't want to talk about anything that about how the team did or how they lost. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. It's something that happened in the game, and I don't know if you heard about this.
Okay, well I saw the highlights, so maybe I did.
So there was a goal that looked like the Canadians scored a goal.
Oh, I saw this.
Okay, and the referee waved it off immediately.
Yeah.
And the reason why he waved it off is that he thought that Andrew Shaw had dislodged the puck that the goalie had frozen. Mm-hmm. That's why he waved it off. So the Canadians challenged. They went to the video replay and they looked at it for 5 minutes. And then they came back and they said, we have a good goal. The puck moved continuously through the crease and went in the net. Like basically it was never frozen. So Shaw never dislodged it. And it's a goal. So rejoice, Canadians fans. You've scored a goal. Not that it would have made a difference in the game. It doesn't matter. The game was over anyways. Then the Kings challenge also. And they challenge that there's goalie interference. So now they go and look at the replay again for 5 minutes. And they come back and they say, no, it's not a goal anymore because he interfered with the goalie. So it's no goal. Yeah. So it went from no goal to no goal.
But it took 10 minutes.
Yeah, and this is a problem. Like, this is not a way for fans in the arena or on TV to enjoy their sport. This is what causes you to not enjoy your sport because you don't know what the rules are, you don't know what's going on, and then 2 overturns on the same play, 3 if you count the initial waving it off, which was the wrong call in the first place. It's just ridiculous. It just makes the league look stupid.
So my question here is, when they were reviewing the first one, the one that the Canadians challenged.
Yes. Why can't they review the whole thing?
Yeah. Could they not have said, oh, you know what? You're right. He didn't have control of the puck. So in that sense, yes, it's a goal, but he interfered with the goalie. So it's not. So let's move on. It's no goal and let's just move on. And no, you can't challenge the challenge.
It's because the replay rule is that like there was no, the ref didn't call goalie interference. So there's no call for goalie interference. Mm-hmm. So if the only way for them to call it is just for the team to challenge, but just having to look at it twice is it from a fan's perspective. And this is what we are, right, Josh? We are by the fans for the fans. This does not make any sense in any universe. And I don't want to live in a world where this type of double replay nonsense is happening. This is not right.
Well, you're living in it. You're living in it and you can't get out. I can't.
But it's on any level that you're looking at it, this is not right. This is wrong. This is something that shouldn't happen. And I don't care about if it's a goal or no goal. couldn't care less about the call. The call, goal or no goal, doesn't matter to me. It's the process here that's like, it's just so silly. It's just so stupid.
It is very silly.
So that's all I've got about hockey.
So since we're talking about the NHL, and you know how I love to talk about schedules, I have two scheduling notes or facts or whatever you want to call them about the NHL.
Schedules.
So tonight the Canadians are playing the Penguins, and that'll be their fourth game.
Yep.
And half of the Canadians' games will have been against the Penguins.
Yes.
So I don't really understand why they're playing the Penguins so often, or is it maybe every Saturday they play the Penguins? I don't know. Yeah. But it's just odd to me.
Yeah, it is odd, but whatever.
The other odd thing is, did you know that last night there were no NHL games at all?
Really?
Really. And I was very surprised to see that.
It's because they were too scared to go up against Dodgers Brewers.
No, because they didn't know the Dodgers Brewers would be playing each other when they made the schedule.
I'm just joking.
I know you are.
That is an oddity, right? No games on a Friday, because there's some markets, Buffalo, Carolina. There's some markets that have a Friday night, like it's often on their schedule. Even Pittsburgh.
I know.
Yeah.
I was surprised. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, for us Canadians, Friday night is not a hockey night. It's Saturday, right?
Right.
But there's many American markets where Friday night your team's always playing.
And I think there's 14 or 15 games today in the NHL, but there were none yesterday. It's just strange.
Before we sign off, I'd like to remind everybody that to make sure you never miss an episode of the Skip and Josh podcast, we would like you to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or pretty much any podcast app of your choice. And as you know, we're on iHeartRadio and Spotify. If you listen via Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. You can send us an email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at skipandjosh, or you can like and follow our Facebook page. And as always, skipandjosh.com has all the links to how to subscribe to everything. I have something from last week that I wanted to correct in the category of corrections.
Okay, please do.
I mentioned last week that CC Sabathia's career earnings were $100 million at least.
Right, and I couldn't believe it was that high.
You thought it was 50. So I looked it up, and his career earnings are $254 million.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I was shocked to see that up until last year, even last year when he wasn't even good anymore, he was making $25 million.
That's insane.
He had 8 seasons in a row where he made at least $23 million. So anybody listening out there with little kids who are left-handed, make them pitchers. Train them up.
That is the key.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if you watched the Brewers game last night against the Dodgers.
I watched most of it.
Yeah, and so I'm sure you noticed that Marlins man was there.
Oh, yes.
One of our listeners who may wish to remain anonymous did send a message to me pointing out that the person sitting next to the Marlins man was a very attractive woman who was had some good cleavage, let's just say.
Okay.
So that once I got that text message and I was aware,
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention to the rest of the game.
No, because they're right behind home plate. They're on
Yes.
every single pitch.
Yes.
Oh, Marlins, man. Gotta
So I
love
wonder. I don't think that he was with her.
it. No?
Like she just happened to be sitting next to him, but I don't think they were together. Because she was clearly a Brewers fan and he was not.
Well, he's just a guy who goes to games. Like
The big question is, there's 2 games today, so which game is he going to be at today is the question.
Well, do you think he flew from like Milwaukee to Boston?
He would. In fact, he might be at both games today.
That would be crazy. Okay, so the Marlins man watches on. We're gonna
Yeah.
keep track of it.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Actually, now I'm more excited to see where he's gonna be than actually to watch the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay. Bye.